All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Integrity Racing Show. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. We're joined tonight by League Administrator and owner Jacob Fife, as we always are, and our special guest tonight is a newcomer to the Integrity Racing League, near Nick Terebuch, and we'll discuss a few different things with him, get to know him a little bit, and then we will discuss the Cup Series race last night at, where were we last night? Pocono. And then the truck race tonight here at Bristol Motorsports Speedway. So thanks for joining us again. Let's get to know our guest tonight, Nick Terebuch. Nick, you're kind of a newcomer to the league in your first season here in the Integrity Racing League. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into iRacing and into the Integrity Racing League.
Yeah, so I started off sim racing way back in NASCAR racing 2003 season. And after racing that for about 5 or so years, I decided to get iRacing, give that a shot. And I first raced with people in Integrity back when it was called Fine Line. I think they did a B car series. And I knew Jacob from back then. I knew Neil Frolic from back in the NASCAR racing 2003 days. And earlier this year, Neil said he needed somebody for his team. So I so graciously accepted the offer. And here I am in Integrity. Loving every minute.
All right, we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, so my apologies for that to everybody. But thanks again to Nick for joining us. Nick, you were actually able to meet everybody at the Integrity Racing League kind of pseudo meetup this past race at Dover. Tell us a little bit about that experience and who you got to meet and what you thought of everybody.
Oh, so I got to meet Jacob, you, I believe, Jay, both de Blasios. I can't remember who else. I know it was like 6 or 8 people around then, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was pretty cool to meet some people that you race with online. You know, it's cool to meet people in real life that you end up racing with every week over and over again, and everybody has the same pretty chill personality in real life as well. And I hope we do that again sometime soon because it's a pretty cool event.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to make it up there last year. I had a lot of fun. A little back there behind you here is, I guess, a little die-cast collection. A lot of Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. cars back there. Are you a big fan of those two drivers? And who are you maybe a follower of on the NASCAR circuit?
Yeah, so my father was a huge Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan. He got me into racing and cars and all that kind of stuff. And personally, I'm a huge follower of Kevin Harvick, and I'm a big Chevy guy, so him going to Ford this season kind of threw a wrench in it, but I'm still supportive of him, so if he's doing well, then that's great. But nowadays, I'm kind of rooting for Kyle Larson. He's really shown some potential to be a champion one of these days. So.
All right, and then as far as sim racing, what are some of the major accomplishments? Maybe your favorite moment that you've had on iRacing, maybe in the Integrity Racing League, and what are some of your better tracks that whenever you get into the service, you feel like you've got a chance to compete at?
Well, one of my favorite moments happened a while back in a totally different league. It was a bigger event for another league, and we were at Daytona, and passed like 8 cars, I think it was, to win. It was crazy. It was my first league win, and so far my only league win, but we'll change that soon. And my favorite track, I have to say, is Dover, just because of the home track kind of thing. And I really enjoy the high banked, faster ovals compared to the slower, longer ovals.
All right, so that's a few moments there with our guest, Nick Terebuch. We'll talk to him a little bit as we update the rookie standings as he's somebody competing in that, and we'll get his feedback on that. And then we'll also talk to Nick about the chase standings, since he's got an interesting viewpoint on that. So, again, thanks to Nick for joining us here tonight. So let's go ahead and dive right into it and look at the results from this past week's race at Pocono. I keep struggling with that. My apologies on that. We were at Pocono on Monday night. Zach Novak inches across the start-finish line, going about 120 to win the race on fumes there at Pocono, clutching at the last few corners there. It was actually a fun race to watch. I was able to watch the broadcast on YouTube. By the way, Rubbered Up Racing has been doing a tremendous job, so thanks to those guys. And did a great job dissecting the race as Zach Novak was running out of gas on the last couple of laps there and really had to limp it across the line. Caleb Eisenhower finishes second uh, by a tenth of a second there. Brad Patton finishes third, right there in the hunt as well. Jacob Fife comes across the finish line fourth. Colton Landis fifth. Christian Schallner finishes sixth. Tyler Hurst seventh. Adam de Blasio eighth. Guillermo Alvarez ninth. And then Nick Terebuch rounds out your top 10 there with a top 10 finish. So Jacob, only two cautions, which is a lot better than what we saw at Pocono a few weeks ago when we raced there, which gave us an interesting fuel dynamic race.
Yeah, well, we certainly had a low bar to clear from our first go-around at Pocono, but everybody did a really good job last night with the racing. We only had two cautions at the very beginning of the race, and then from there, like you said, it really set up perfectly when the last caution came to run a great fuel strategy and do different strategies. I was one of the ones who stretched it out for one pit stop and was pretty close to, I was more comfortable than most. As you mentioned, Novak was sputtering across the line. I think myself and Patton and maybe Eisenhower had an extra lap to spare. But it definitely proved to be an interesting race in terms of the strategy that was able to play out. I know a lot of guys were saving fuel through both runs. I did the same thing. And it's just really nice to see that play out and the green flag pit stops that went along with it. And just, to have everything that involves and that comes along in a race actually come into play instead of, caution after caution, and you're just really sprint racing more or less. So that was great to see because I think we've been having better racing over the past couple weeks. So I'm real encouraged by that.
All right, and Nick, you get another top 10 finish, strong and consistent as you have been all year up there in the top 10, around that spot all year long. Tell us about your race and how the finish kind of broke down there for you in that last fuel run.
Yeah, so I agree with Jacob. I really enjoy races that end up being longer green flag runs because it brings the endurance kind of aspect of racing into it. My race was mostly trying to survive in the beginning, try to avoid few early wrecks we did have, and just trying to keep a decent pace in order to, stay in that kind of top 10 range, top 15 range. Near the end there, since it was such a close fuel, had to really watch a fuel at the end, I ended up having to save about 2 laps of fuel in the last 15 laps or so. So I was doing a lot of half throttle, a lot of early off the gas, entering the corner and stuff. But really, I was just trying to hold on so I could keep that top 10 finish that I'd like to have.
All right, so let's go ahead and break down the chase standings after that Pocono event last night. Congratulations to Zach Novak on yet another Integrity Racing League win in his young career here with the league. So let's go ahead and break down the chase standings after the last night's event. Brought to you courtesy of Adam de Blasio, and thanks to Adam, as always, for putting in the work here on the chase grid. Brad Patton maintains that points lead by virtue of his 2 regular season wins. Adam de Blasio, Guillermo Alvarez, Todd Thomas, and Michael Dole round out the top 5. The only 5 non-pro drivers with wins this year in the Integrity Racing League. Of note here this week, as Adam has added the gold names. If your name is highlighted in gold, you've both won a race, so you're locked into the chase, and then you've also completed the minimum number of starts, which is 17. So myself and Brad Patton still have a little bit of work there to do to meet that 17 race minimum. Jay Heisman in 6th, Jacob Fife 7th, Josh Campbell 8th, Cody Smith 9th, Eric de Blasio 10th, James Hudson 11th, Caleb Eisenhower's in 12th. And then we start to get down to the bubble once you get down to William Dunn, Nick Terebuch, and Greg Trigo, and then Jason K. Miller. So those 4 drivers separated by just looks like 23 points, and only 2 of those drivers are going to make it into the chase. Nick, you obviously helped your position out with a strong running top 10 at Pocono. So you're 10 points to the good right now. Are you comfortable there, or do you think you've got some work to do to make your way into the chase?
Yeah, there's always more I can do to increase my chances of staying in the chase. I came in this season not really expecting to be in the chase, given the level of competition here in this league. But the fact that I am, so close and on the bubble, I definitely want to keep my top 10, top 15 finishes going. Hopefully a few top 5s so I can get in there pretty solidly. But it's definitely going to be a fun chase battle, that's for sure.
And once again, I owe everybody a little bit of apology as I forgot to change it over to the chase grid and let everybody see that. So I'm going to try to bring that back up here so that everybody can see it again. My apologies. I just forgot to hit the button there to change the scene over. So again, everybody on the left-hand side of the page is probably locked in and in good shape. On the right-hand side of the page are maybe drivers that are a little bit closer. William Dunn, Nick Terebuch, Greg Trigo, and Jason K. Miller, separated by just 24 points, I should say, for those two final spots. Jacob, try to rescue the host a little bit here and give us your feedback on the chase grid and what we're looking at as we close down the regular season with just 6 races left.
Somebody's got to try to keep you in line, Todd. No, I mean, once you when you look at the chase grid, I think it really comes down to that bubble area right there with 6 races to go is really tight, and it really has a lot of talented drivers within it. I think, like you mentioned, the left side of the page has, guys that are going to be consistent enough to hang in there and finish out the season strong and probably not get into trouble, more than likely. There's always that if. So the real question is going to be the guys on the right side of the page, are they going to be able to keep being consistent? And is there going to be any drivers who meet the minimum starts that have a surprise win that change, that flip the dynamic once again and have that spot taken away for somebody who's trying to get in on points? Obviously at this point, I think most drivers understand that with somebody like Novak or Challoner or when Fash or Boosa are here, when they run, it is really difficult to have wins. But getting those wins is imperative if you can do that. So maybe strategy or something like that will help propel somebody into the chase who might not be in it right now.
All right, so let's go ahead and ignore the other screw-up that I just made and move on to the Clean Driver Award as we try to get this show back on track. The Clean Driver Award has seen a little bit of an update as Kent Wetherill has leapfrogged Greg Trigo there for the leading spot with 79 laps per incident. So congratulations to Kent, trying to defend as the reigning Clean Driver Award champion. Greg Trigo is second, Guillermo Alvarez third. And then as we look down the laps list, I know this is always important for our friend Jay Heisman. Our friend Jay Heisman has 2,737 laps completed. So he just has 30 laps over Kent Wetherill for the laps completed mark. So that's an important tool for Jay we wanted to give out. But again, Kent Wetherill has the lead there for the Clean Driver Award. And as we go forward, Jacob, again, some good drivers on this list that are people that are always strong and consistent and clean as well.
Yeah, I think we keep coming back to this every week, and the more consistent drivers are the ones who are able to stay clean and keep out of the trouble. I think when you look at guys like Jay and Kent and Greg, they're the ones that are patient. They stay towards, I'm not going to say the completely back of the field, but they stay towards the back third of the field, and they wait for things to play out. Obviously, you can run a little bit of trouble doing that if you have a race like Pocono, for example, where you're going to have a late start, so to speak, in trying to catch back up, because the anticipation is you're going to have another caution, which didn't happen at Pocono. But for the most part, that strategy really does play out. I did it some last year. I've done it a couple times this year. And with the right amount of patience and tact to kind of understand the dynamic of the race and how it's playing out, you can really keep it clean and make the right moves at the right time to, finish races.
All right, and as we transition here, let's go ahead and take a look at the Rookie of the Year standings, since we have a pretty strong contender here with us on the show tonight. Brad Patton maintains an 11-point lead over Caleb Eisenhower for the Rookie of the Year standings. And then Nick Terebuch, 13 points back, but then a little bit of a drop-off to Brad Coppinger. But Nick, you sit there in third place in the Rookie of the Year standings, and 13 points back of our points leader there, Brad Patton. Is that something that you set out as a goal this year, or is it something just kind of lingering in the back of your mind?
It's definitely something I thought of coming in here. Neil told me that I would have a chance at running for the Rookie of the Year. And there's definitely a lot of, stiff competition up there. You have Brad, who's always running well. Caleb always runs pretty well. Brandon Coppinger, me and him always seem to be pretty much next to each other on the track the entire race. And I think it'd be pretty cool if I could hang in there and at least stay in the top 3 of that by the end of the year. But if I can somehow manage to come out on top of that, that'd be a really good thing to put for my resume, my racing career.
And you've got a shot at it since we keep accumulating drop weeks as we complete the season here. Stop laughing at me, Jacob. And by accumulating as many races, and everybody's going to have the added pressure of both competing for the Rookie of the Year championship as well as the major championship at the end of the year. So things will get cracking here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and break down the Truck Series race tonight that was at Bristol. An interesting race, as they say in the business. And Joseph Ties in his first ever race with the Integrity Racing League. We've had a lot of guys win their first race with the Integrity Racing League already this year. And Joseph Ties does that with his win at Bristol tonight. Lance Gentles finishes second. William Dunn finishes out the podium in third. Maxime Thuriot recovers from some early race incidences where he was wrecked through no fault of his own to finish fourth. Matthew Wright leads a race-high 107 laps but has to settle for fifth. Cody Smith finishes sixth to round out the lead lap. Randy Fayash seventh. Daniel Holloway eighth. Kent Weatherall ninth. And Alan Roll with another top 10 finish for Alan. Jacob, it was a fine race there until we had a little bit of a net code incident that took out a lot of good trucks, and that's nothing that anybody can control, but it was kind of a start and go type of race tonight. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, until half the field got wrecked out, that it was real start and go. But like you said, the net code incident was unfortunate. As you mentioned, from that point on, I watched the rest of the race. Lost my train of thought. It must be contagious tonight. The ending of the race was very good, though. You can watch that on our Facebook page. I posted that right before the show started. And there's a great battle between Lance and William and Joseph, who really came strong on the end. And to see the difference in tire wear was really interesting to see. I didn't expect that, to be quite honest, because you had Matthew Wright was dominant for the early portion of the race, and once Caleb unfortunately fell out, it was basically matched to win. I think it would have been his fifth win of the year as far as the Truck Series is concerned. But for whatever reason, he really, I don't know about falling off the pace, but the other guys like Lance and William were able to start to catch up with them. And then they got to start battling for the lead. And before you know it, Joseph was able to come in there and created one heck of a battle in the closing 10 laps or so. That's definitely worth the watch. And just different lines and different, I think it was 3 wide at one point, and a really, really interesting race. At the end, I just wish that we didn't have quite as many wrecks as we had at the beginning to kind of get to that point. Because there was definitely a lot of competitive trucks out there tonight racing in the Truck Series, and we definitely appreciate that.
It was an interesting night. I'd be remiss if I didn't blow this up, and somebody in the chat brought this up, but congratulations to Christopher Halling on his 13th place finish on his 26 incidents. So, anytime you can finish with half as many or twice as many incidents as your finishing position, you had a strong race. So we want to congratulate Christopher Halling on his 13th place finish. And it looks like we hope you're watching there, Dale.
Yeah.
In 17th tonight was our guest Nick Terebuch, and Nick, I think you were with me up there towards the front as the major incident kind of broke loose because of the net code, and then it was just downhill from there.
Yeah, we were up there in top 5, top 8 people, and unfortunately got caught up in that wreck. But when it's at Bristol and it's that high up on the track, right in a racing line, it's kind of hard to avoid it. And after I got my damage repaired, and I decided to do the dumb thing and come back out running about 30 miles an hour off the pace. And unfortunately, got into a little incident where the two leaders, I forget who it was, but I know Caleb was one of the leaders as well. They had to go under me because I could not get my car going enough to get down below on the apron. And unfortunately, between that and netcode, it knocked Caleb out of the race. So it was just definitely a very interesting race. But the ending was definitely exciting, that's for sure.
All right, so let's break down the Chase grid for the Chase Series. As a reminder here, just 2 races to go in the Truck Series before we start the playoffs. And you have to meet your minimum number of races, so make sure you're doing that and checking the rule book and checking the standings on that. James Hudson, currently your points leader, but he doesn't have the most number of wins. Matthew Wright has 4 wins, so he'll have a pretty sizable advantage once the chase starts with those 4 victories and the bonus points that he'll get from that. Guillermo Alvarez, Jacob Fife, Lance Gentles, Brandon Six, and Greg Trigo all have a win and are locked into the chase by virtue of that. Randy Fayash and Cody Smith have also locked themselves in by virtue of mathematically clinching via points. And that leaves Joshua Buckley as the last driver into the chase on points. He's currently 17 points ahead of Daniel Holloway as we go into that final 2 races, I believe, before we start the chase. Or is it just 1 race, Jacob? Can you give us a little info on that? Is it 2 races or one race left?
Yeah, 1 race to go. We're going to be at the, I call it Mosport, the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I won't do what Alan did earlier and mispronounce Canada.
Canada.
Canada, yeah. But anyway, one more race. Basically, it's a 2-man race at this point for the bubble spot between Josh and Daniel. I think Daniel's about 14 points back or so. So it's between them 2 to get in, unless somebody like Nick, possibly. I think with 1 more race, he could get the minimum. Or I believe Caleb as well. If they win, then they could bump their way in through winning because they would have the minimum amount of starts. But otherwise, it really is a 2-man race between them 2. And then we're off for a week. We'll probably do a fun race at Eldora during the off week. And then we're off. We're doing the Chase Series for the Truck Series. There's a lot of series.
All right, so that's going to kind of wrap up our look at the week that was. Let's start to look forward to the week that will be. We come up on 2 different road courses. So for those of you that enjoyed turning right, this is the week just for you. I know Adam de Blasio is watching and would probably enjoy what we're about to talk about. And then we also have the Mexican Guillermo Alvarez who's watching and probably enjoys the turning right a little bit. Nick, we go on Monday night, we go to Watkins Glen. We do not run the boot. Are you somebody that enjoys Watkins Glen a little bit faster pace and a little bit more flowing than Sonoma? Does that fit your driving style a little bit better as we look forward to Monday night?
Yeah, I definitely prefer Watkins Glen over Sonoma. I think it's going to be a pretty fun race. Watkins Glen always seems to bring out the road course skill on everybody, so we'll see what happens then. It's a pretty quick track, and there's not very many confusing turns like there is in Sonoma with the S-bends and the crazy hairpin turn and stuff like that. So we should see a pretty good race then, hopefully. I'm not sure about how well I'll do there, but I'm sure that the guys like Adam and them will definitely enjoy it and have some fun racing there.
All right, and then the Truck Series on Tuesday night goes to Canadian Motorsports Park. I know absolutely nothing about the track because I don't own it. So, Jacob, break down Canadian Motorsports Park as the Truck Series wraps up the regular season.
Well, basically, I think the 2 courses are very similar in terms of very sweeping corners, very fast-paced. So they're similar in that way. Somewhat narrow in certain spots, so you kind of have to be on your P's and Q's. You have to hit your marks, but that's, I think that's every road course, to be perfectly honest. A lot of elevation change, and I think it'll be a decent race to see where everybody stands with their road course chops. So if you have the opportunity, come on out and race with us a week from tonight. and it should be a fun race to wrap up the regular season for the Truck Series.
All right, so that's going to wrap up another edition of the Integrity Racing Show. My apologies for a little bit of the technical difficulties there, as I wasn't transitioning as well as I should have. We'll do better next week as we get together to break down 2 different road course races. We see you on track on Monday. We'll see you on the track on Tuesday, and then we'll see you back here after the truck race as we break down another week of Integrity Racing League action. Thanks for joining us tonight, and have a great week, everybody.